There's no second best. By becoming rich. Take all your money, buy Bitcoin. I say when we
You can wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. Today is fucking Tuesday. Tuesday. So Bitcoin rejected the move higher off the weekly open, the red line. And now we're back into just a consolidation, so I can get rid of all this. I think BTC is just consolidating here. Now, one of the things to keep an eye on is the old May-June value area low, which is from all of this consolidation up here. We are now below that level, and this is absolutely a low time frame trend shift. At least it should be. Because you've moved from an upward sloping, upwards, higher highs, higher lows, where it was holding good structure and barring a wick, which was just a stop loss sweep. You had these rising moves. That has now shifted into downtrending structure and losing that value area. The deep dip down into that wick is probably going to be enough for price to stop right here. And as you can see, it's just right back at this level and retesting. So for now, it's okay. But I would expect that this multiple attempts that failed, I should say, to break above 68 leads us towards a move lower. Maybe it's going to go for another push. We have another attempt. If that one fails, down we go. But I think that losing that value area low again and the inability to break above 68 probably shows that that's our local resistance for now. And price has to drop a little bit for reaccumulation, for distribution, whatever it is, whether we're going up or down. I don't know if it's as, and I don't think it will be as simple as just from here, it's just going to fall down because, everyone can see this gap and everyone's got their eyes on it and it seems very logical that Bitcoin should come all the way down, blah, blah, blah. But I do think eventually that's most likely. With how this price action is developing, I see it like that, where you see this almost as the left shoulder and the head falling back down to form a right shoulder. Whether it ends up being a sell-off or not, you can see it here, right? Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, falls back. It ended up not being bearish. It reaccumulated, went higher. Like, it doesn't have to be a bearish setup, but I look at it and say, just watch price and what's price doing. It pushes up, it pushes up, it pushes up. All good. Consolidates. Pushes higher. Weaker push, and then a lower high. The more times it tries to go somewhere and fails to go there, the stronger that resistance and the less demand you can assume is in the market to push it up. And so you'd quite simply just be looking for price to go in the opposite direction. So I think that last attempt was the most telling for BTC. Also, it's been accompanied by a massive inflow day, which does not have any effect on price. Take note of that. BlackRock, 526 million, and yet price down, right? Monday's open was here. Monday's open, 526 million of inflows. Here we are on Tuesday morning. Why? Because the ETFs don't buy off the open market. If somebody was buying a lot through BlackRock, they're probably going to do it over the counter. Which means if you were buying, let's say, 400 million or 500 million, you would call somebody up and say, we want to buy 500 million. Can we arrange this to not impact price? I don't want to get a terrible fill. And so it would be notified ahead of time, and it would probably go through OTC markets or probably go through one of the registered APs, the registered authorized participants. And there's a big difference between 500 million, right? So I've seen a bit of this talk on Twitter about, like, why would that not make the price go up? Because the bigger the order, the more likely it is that it will have planning beforehand or be done over the counter, which doesn't affect price. doesn't impact price as much. If you had 500 million of inflows that came from 500 different people buying $1 million each at the market, right? So they all come in and said, oh, I want to buy $1 million throughout the day, and it wasn't anything coordinated, right? It wasn't, none of these people know each other. They all just wanted Bitcoin. They all come in, they all placed orders. That would cause more of an impact on price itself, because you have $500 million of fresh, new, organic demand that's saying, I want to buy, and I want to buy really at any price. I just need to buy today. That's what I need to do. But if it's one entity, they'll come in and say, all right, what can we do here? And over-the-counter OTC, that's off the books. That's where these market makers will have connections with whales, miners, and other entities that want to do large deals directly with a certain buyer. So that's why it didn't move that much, at least the most likely reason. Now we're going into the ETH ETF launch, and everyone has seen already, I posted it in trading analysis, of which I'm torn, by the way, on a complete tangent. I think I have to turn notification or reactions on in trading analysis and in every other channel where they're not on, because that's how we track the activity in the campus. So on our back end, the way I see which are the most popular channels, the way that we see across all the campuses, which are the most popular channels and the most popular campuses in general, who's got the highest activity, who's got the highest retention, who's coming back, who's leaving, how long do people spend on each channel. Reactions is part of that. So I'm torn, because I like my nice clean trading analysis with no fucking reactions, but I think I'm going to have to do it. Anyway, complete sidetracking there. What I was saying was, in trading analysis, I posted about ETH ETF. Oh yeah, here. Grayscale sends $1 billion worth of ETH into Coinbase Prime. So obviously the expectation is that some of the people in ETH, the Grayscale Ethereum trust, are going to sell. They're going to redeem, they're going to swap their ETH for dollars or swap it back into ETH spot itself, whatever. The case may be, there's going to be sell pressure on day one. I think that's always been expected. I don't think anybody could expect anything different. I think that's frankly illogical to think that there would be anything other than selling, right? Doesn't mean there can't be demand. I just don't think that there will be enough demand to produce massive flows. I think a good outcome. So today, obviously, the ETFs launch. So they launch at 1:30 UTC. I'll be there. I'll be live. I think ETH's probably the better trading vehicle today, and I'll talk about ETH in Trade of the Day, just from a launch perspective. I'll compare it to Bitcoin's launch and tell you some of the similarities and differences. And what I see is volatility in both directions. You're at the absolute worst place, as price tends to do. It's at the absolute worst place you could ever wish to trade. It's so funny how price does this. How price goes to areas of pure balance right when everybody wants to get a strong opinion on it. So what do I mean by that? Well, the lows, 2,800. The highs, 4,100. Right in the middle, 3,500. Like literally smack bang in the middle of this wider range, wider consolidation. So when it's right in the middle, you have absolutely fucking no edge. You get long here, cool. Where are you putting your stop loss? At the lows, because that's where you need to put it. You can easily see a wick down, even if it bounces up. You could easily, if you go long here, easily see a sharp wick down to 32, 31, even to 3,000, that then just reverses back up. A bit like this over here. Not as much leverage in the system. I wouldn't expect that to happen, but it can happen, right? And you go short, good luck, because you can, again, easily squeeze out the shorts up towards range high. There's no major resistance till 3,800. There's no major support until 3,100. So you're in the middle of nowhere. Today is a day trader's market only. Do not make any fucking big decisions about ETH today. All that has happened for the past 4 months on ETH is mean reverting moves. It moves down, it leaves behind a gap, right? You have 1, 2, 3 red candles in a row with no retest. You have an order block over there. So the entire ETH moves all the way down, okay? Down, 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 down. Breaks down and leaves a gap. What does it do? Consolidates sideways, moves up, fills that gap, moves up, retests that order block. Right? So it mean reverts the move. It's not trending, but it leaves behind inefficiency, goes back and retests it. But in doing so, what did it do? Left behind another gap. Gaps here and a big gap there. Big impulse candle. What does it do? Fills it in nice and slowly. Fills it in, fills it in, fills it in. At the end, how does it fill in? Drops down, leaves a gap. 4 red candles in a row. Untested area. What does it do? Consolidates, moves up, retests that. It's just a consolidating, mean reverting market. There is no bullish case to be made. There is no bearish case to be made. People who are talking about fucking ETFs are great or ETFs are terrible, they're just morons, cunts, who are making shit up completely. There is nothing at all in the price action of ETH to indicate anything other than a sideways market. That's it. And it's the same shit over and over again. When it bounced up here and you had the announcement and it was near the highs, everyone's like, holy shit, ETH's amazing. But a week before, when it was down here, people were saying ETH's terrible, ETH's the worst fucking thing ever, it's going to go lower. And when it was down here, ETH's going to go to zero. And I mentioned exactly that, didn't I? Didn't I say that when it fills up, when it moves up like that, it tends to fill it in. And once it fills it in, if it doesn't break those lows, people are going to be crying about how ETH is going lower, and it's not going to go lower. And it didn't go lower, and it bounced up. And now suddenly, oh, I guess the ETFs are good. I guess we're back. All-time highs. No, it's just fucking sideways. It's just fucking sideways. Look at this shit. It's just spending 16 weeks or 18 weeks or whatever going nowhere, right? Now, the longer that goes on, the more likely it becomes that this ends up going higher, because it's not so different to last summer, right? This is one of the ways, and I'll go back to Bitcoin for this because ETH I'll talk more about. I'll talk more about ETH on Trade of the Day. Now, there's more volatility here if you look at Bitcoin than there was last summer. Last summer was really nice. From April to May, June, July, August, September, you had this really nice range where if you were around at that time, and many of you were, it's not that long ago, but I remember it, I was trading it. The better way of saying it is I was trying to not trade it, because it was one of those areas where you don't want to overtrade because you know not much is happening and you just have to wait for a clean break of 25 or a clean break of 31. It's really simple. Everyone knows this, but most people won't do it because it's hard not to gamble when you're in the casino. This is the exact same thing. It comes along, it kind of creeps up on you. So you have this big impulse move in March of 2023, right? You have that big move up. That's the equivalent of our last move up here, right? To where the market had that big 5-6 week rally. Over here, it was more of a kind of 8 week move where you had an impulse, you had a little bit of sideways, you had that really big reversal, moves up. Regardless, by the time that big move happened, by the time this big move happened, the market was fully bullish, right? The market was bullish on, you know, a lower time frame basis. Even though here people weren't like, bull market's crazy, we're all back. They were feeling super happy because they remembered how it felt to have 16k Bitcoin. Now suddenly we've got 28k Bitcoin. You're like, holy shit, Bitcoin's back. It's almost doubled, blah, 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 right? Then this part happens and it goes into like dead sideways chop from March until June. That's the same as obviously here. We're into this kind of dead sideways chop from March until May, right, initially. Now, what you have over here, in hindsight, you're like, oh, that's a really nice low volatility, compression, pullback, retesting 25k. Like, this is amazing. This is exactly what we want to see. It breaks out. It has a really slow, nice consolidation, and boom, away we go. Like, who wouldn't like that? That's perfect. That was not what people felt at the time. At the time, everyone was fucking getting themselves liquidated and chopped up, trying to trade with super high leverage in these stupid little ranges that barely move. Everyone was complaining, dead coin, fucking stupid, boomer coin, because they didn't trade any of this. They come in late and they trade all that. Sound familiar? Yeah. Most people missed all of this because they were too afraid to buy for whatever fucking reason, or they didn't know, or they left out, or they forgot about it, or they took their eye off the ball. Then they start to try to trade that. And then they tell you about how bad Bitcoin is. Price action's terrible. Manipulation like crazy. It's predatory pricing. No. You're just trying to trade a mean reverting market the same way you would trade the trend. It's a different market. And so it takes time to really understand that. And by the time that happens, by the time everyone gets used to Bitcoin not moving, it moves again. But then it fully retraces, right? And so by the time everyone got used to Bitcoin going only down, it had a massive rally, but then it retraced the whole thing. And so now we're here, and we're back inside the range, and it doesn't look the same as it did there, and it shouldn't. But like I just showed on ETH, when you have an area where you have a fairly well-defined low and high, and price just stays within it, and tries to go low, but stays in it, and stays in it for longer, stays in it for longer, that's going higher. That is 100% going higher eventually. Now, not right away, and I don't think it will go right away, but it's the exact same sentiment and positioning setup as the moves last year. Basically, people come into a trend too late, and then they keep trying to trade the trend, but the trend's over, and they have months and months and months of painful rallies that fail and dumps that take them out. And then they give up and think there's no way this could possibly be bullish, because every time Bitcoin tries to rally, it always fails. Every time it comes up to here, it goes all the way back to there, right? And by the way, wouldn't be surprised if we see it move back down there. But if it fails to break down again, guess what? It's just going to start then creeping higher. And people aren't going to believe it. Whenever that happens, they're not going to believe it, because they've been fucking cucked once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it gets to there. I'm not buying I'm not falling for that again. Every rally fails. Just like all of this grinding up, this move, that breakout, the most obvious breakout we've had in the entire bull market, people faded it. Why? Because every rally failed. This rally failed, that rally failed, that rally failed, that one failed. BlackRock applying for an ETF couldn't push above 31. That was the narrative. If BlackRock applying can't push above 31, how are we going to get over it? Bitcoin's weak, right? Rally fails, rally fails, rally fails. People give up. So that's what I see when I see Bitcoin and ETH. I don't know when. People ask about time frame. I've said Q4. So September will be the earliest, like leading into it. Q4 is obviously October, November, December. I think September is probably when it starts to turn around. But the main move for the next breakout is probably September, October, November, December. We're in mid to late July. And I think there can be more. I think there needs to be some compression, right? The volatility is still a bit high here. Like before a big breakout, you tend to see volatility disappear when you have these big moves. So what you'd like to see would be Bitcoin doing something like that for a few weeks, where volatility just dies off. Or if it goes back to the lows, same thing, but from down there. And then as it breaks from that, that's when you start to see a major move. It's like ironically why seeing this is probably not the best thing, right? If you see that, because we haven't had a compression. Before every major move, Bitcoin tends to actually have a compression where volatility decreases and the market sort of builds energy before a break. Now, that won't happen every single time, but it does happen before every major move that you can see. When you look at here, compresses before the big move up. From here, obviously, the whole move, the whole summer was a compression, but also especially that part there. After this crazy ETF wick, we had compression for a few weeks where Bitcoin was not moving much. And since these highs, we're just seeing volatility. Wide volatility is not a sign of a bullish market, right? When you're at the highs and you see a lot of this whipsawing, which is basically what we have now, right, where it's just fucking all over the place, that's a sign of changing opinions. It's a sign of uncertainty, right? Because How can Bitcoin be 73k and then fucking 53k within the space of a couple of weeks? And then whipsaw all the way back to 70 and then all the way back to 60 and then all the way back to 72. If Bitcoin settles down at whatever point and goes into lower volatility compression, that's when I'm much more confident of a major lasting breakout. And that's kind of what ETH's doing, right? So the good thing about ETH is that the longer it spends here, the more bullish it becomes, because here I see it like this. Whether I think there'll be a spike up, by the way. I think the ETF probably some kind of spike up, then it goes down, it goes like that. That's exactly what you want to see, right? You want to see volatility getting lower and lower and lower and more of this compression, and then eventually, when it breaks from that, that's going to build up a proper move. Now, so the volatility is actually decreasing on ETH. BTC, it's not really yet. So I'd like to see one more move down, move up like that, and then it just suddenly starts to move. And it's like any of these moves. It just starts to grind higher and people fade it. I think that's what you want to see next, whenever it comes, wherever it comes from. But today we'll probably get the first idea with the ETH ETF. Bitcoin is going to be left behind today in terms of the news cycle, so not sure what price will do there. It's probably just going to stay chopping around. And we'll see. I think initially downside risks are much, much greater for both BTC and ETH. Not because they have to be super bearish, but just because, we've had a pretty extended run up and now we have a big event with the ETF launch. So there's easily room for a pullback. That would just be normal. Profit taking, consolidation, people getting long before the event, sell the news. Doesn't mean that it has to go to zero. You get the idea. That's it. GM. See you later. Live stream. 4 p.m. UTC. GM.